I'm so pleased to have one of my best buddies here today. I want to introduce you to Doug Shaw. Doug and I have known each other for a very long time, and I'm not sure what that says about us, Doug, but
It's all good.
It's all good. Yes, it's all good. So Doug and I started working together when he was at a company, a pretty good sized firm in Atlanta. And he was very fortunate because the people who were running it, the C-suite people, said, well, we want to get this guy some training because they were putting you in a position that you hadn't had before.
Mm-hmm.
And Doug is an architect. And so it was an interesting venture for me because I think you were the first architect that I worked with, which was very different from the engineering folks, of course. And so Doug and I worked together for 3 years, and I told his boss repeatedly, I'm going to train Doug to be the CEO. And his boss said, great, that's wonderful. Only what happened, Doug?
Well, it didn't turn out that way, but that's okay because things do change and morph as your career moves and as companies change perspectives and leadership within. So I did not stay at that company. I did leave and go to another company, but I was at the time running a very large architectural division. So even though I did not reach the CEO level, I really needed those skills in order to manage the 60 or 70 people that I was working with anyway. So it was a good training ground, no matter what.
It was you were running a small to medium-sized business. And small is probably an understatement, but a medium-sized business. And you had responsibility for the numbers and everything, correct?
Correct. You know, I had some market leaders who were pretty strong, but we did about $12 to $15 million of revenue a year, which is a great number.
Yeah.
And had market segments that some of them that I were really familiar with, and some of them I wasn't really familiar with as a designer. But from a manager standpoint, you know, some of the same things had to apply to every market segment. From a leaders who are sitting there to me coaching them, to me getting them to understand some of the business principles we're trying to meet on a regular basis. We did have a board that we had to answer to, so there wasn't just me in the architecture division or other divisions to answer from a number standpoint. And Pam really helped me guide me into really respecting the numbers more than I had respected in the past. I've always been one of these creative types where, you know, if my bank account has got, you know, money in it, I'm doing okay. But Pam did a really good job of keeping me focused on metrics that are really an important part of people understanding where they need to go and where they need to improve. So that was a great piece of the mentoring that I had.
Yeah, and we were. I just remember that what was it, a half-day seminar back when we could get together with people, with your market leaders, and me just my jaw hitting the table because I couldn't believe these people were so blatantly didn't know what the numbers were, and it was just astounded me.
Yeah, so it was a combination of things. You know, it was a culture of them not having to physically do them themselves. They had people doing spreadsheets for them. And of course, that was a big problem in itself. There was no kind of integrated management accounting system that spread across the platform. Eventually they got there, but it was a really hard transition. And then on top of that, you know, some of the market leaders were kind of in between what they should be doing, you know, whether they should be in a management role or in a design role or in a client relations role or in a QC role, you know, all those things you got to do in a design firm. So I tried to make sure that they understood really what I needed from them to focus on so that we all could be successful together.
So that really was good training and experience for you. I mean, on the job training to prepare you. And then you went to another company where I believe you told me that you had an opportunity to set up your own operations again and to learn a little bit more.
Yeah, I don't know if that was the smartest thing to do and where I was in my career, but I did it anyway. You know, it was it was a situation where it really is kind of fun to kind of paint your own picture versus trying to repaint something that's already there. And in the previous firm, it was a collage there, and it was really hard to get all the pieces organized again. But in starting something new and a blank canvas, it was a lot of fun. And in a short period of time, we had, we were into markets that we needed to be in. I had the right leaders below me that could manage those things. We all understood the numbers because we went through them on a regular basis. And building the team was fun. I was building my own team at that point. So I was looking at skill sets when I was talking to people, figuring out what they do well and where they should be, what they should be doing to be successful and to be happy as well. And in a very short period, we had like 11 people in 2 years, which is pretty quick, and starting from scratch in a public sector market where the previous firm had no public sector experience. So it was pretty successful.
And I should throw in here that you are really, really good at business development. I'll just put that. So when you talk market segments or getting something that they had never had in the firm before, this is an area that you have a lot of talent, out of native talent, natural talent to do that. So there was another interlude, and then tell us how you got where you are right now.
So at some point, I had built a good piece of the company, and the public sector was big and thriving. And I still had an itch to have my own company. I had always had it since I was at Precision Planning in my 20s, at that previous company. And, my kids were at an age where it started to make some sense. They were either old enough that they didn't need me around very much, or they didn't want me around either. But so I was able to get a partner and start my own business. And at that point, again, I was starting over from ground zero. But in a short period of time, we were able to make some good headway. And gosh, it's a long sales cycle and starting over from scratch, because you're going against firms with 10, 20, 30 years experience. They've got principals who've done the same building type and for the same clients for years and years. And I'm really proud of the fact that we've got a kind of an enlightened approach on how we do things. I designed the company to be very light from an overhead standpoint, a lot of outsourcing, from IT to HR to accounting. Those types of things don't weigh me down. Having a very good multiplier that allows profit to happen and be have competitive fees. I think the really exciting thing is I previously was sectioned into a certain market segment that I had to be in, but I can be in any market segment that I want, being my own company. And not that I shouldn't narrow it down at some point, but right now it's great to have that variety in the office. And I know that people that are working for me love the variety within the office.
And then you called me, what, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, something. And we had, of course, stayed in touch, and we continued to have lunch or whatever together every so often. And I got a call from you. I think it was a call. Said, Pam, I need you. There's no better words to coach's ears than hear somebody say that. Hey, I need you. Explain to our friends why you called me.
So, the firm was doing well, and as a small business owner, you have to wear a lot of hats, and it really is hard to juggle everything. One of the things that's hard to juggle is just making sure that you're pouring yourself and your experience into your people. But you also have to identify what your exit strategy is. So I do have an exit strategy, and hopefully I'll reach that magic word, which is retirement. But I knew that if I didn't start planning and start investing into some people in the company, it wouldn't happen at all. It's a very important part of having an enduring asset. So I called Pam. I had a young lady who was working with me and actually had worked with me previously in 2 other companies. She followed me up to my new company, and has a lot of great skill sets, competitive kind of personality, very astute with numbers, which I'm a numbers person too. I really like people who have that capability. So I called Pam and said, Pam, this is a person that I want to invest in. And I know what you did for me, and I want to make sure that I'm hoping one day that she is going to help lead the charge to kick me out of my business and say, hey, go play golf and kiss babies or do whatever you need to do. But I'm running the show, and you need to just be the guy out there shaking hands and helping out with networking, I guess. But having that lineage piece, that transition piece is an important part of any company, whether you're starting one early in your career or late in your career. You really got to have that. You got to have that happening for you.
So in your role now as CEO, how many folks do you have in your firm as of today?
We've got 14. We got 14.
Okay. I didn't know it was that high yet. And are you willing to share what your goals are, your growth goals are?
Yeah, I think that my goal is to really double in about 2 years. And I think we're going to get there. We have really been fortunate lately. We've gotten some really big commissions lately. So we're starting to graduate. When the company first started, we took re-roofs and bathroom renovations and small projects to build relationships. And now those relationships are turning into bigger and better projects. And I've been able to do a lot more business development personally. And really activate my business network, and in doing so, that's allowed the company to grow. And I think what we're trying to grow in stable areas of the economy too. So we're heavy into the medical field. We're just signed a deal for 4 medical office buildings. We're heavy into county governments. We've got IDIQ contracts and major projects with many county governments. We're doing great work for the state now through the technical college system and the board of regents. So we've got this really good base of stable clients on the government side. And then what we're trying to do is have a little bit of balance in the force, if you will, is starting to bolster the private side, whether it be in the church sector, mixed use sector, and things like that. So we've really got a lot of sectors that are getting activated. And then recently I hired a lady for some help in business development, but she also is a K-12 expert. And that's another area of stabilization, and money is going to continue to be there to build schools. So I think we've got a really kind of great broad base of cross markets and in stable environments.
So you got into these markets because, again, you have a natural flow for BD, and you're a smart dude. What did you have to do to make sure these were the right markets? In other words, if somebody is watching this video and they're going, I want to be that guy. How do I do what he did? What kind of research would they need to do in order to really be fully prepared to rise to a level in BD?
So I think I'm going to take the medical market as an example, because it really was a new market for me about 2.5 years ago. And I talked to a lot of people about it, a lot of leasing agents. I talked to a lot of engineers who've done a lot of medical work. I talked to some developers who do a lot of medical work. And I really wanted to focus on an area that I didn't have to do heavy relationship politicking to get in. So I'm not in the hospital systems. I'm more on the private side, and with private sector doctors and doctors' practices. So I did a little research about that. And of course, from a research standpoint, what's really easy to see is that baby boomers are getting older. And I'm on the tail end of the baby boomers, and we're going to need what? Healthcare. And
yes.
In a growing environment that Atlanta is, it's continuing to grow. It's the most business-friendly state in the country. It's like that all the time. Healthcare, good schools, those things are going to be a part of every community and every community's growth. So all that just made a whole lot of sense. Now, getting your first deal was a little bit harder than I thought it was, but once you get into this rhythm and you get into this network, it really is a small world, just like anything. The doctor medical world is just as small as some of the construction and design world. So, you make sure you got the right people doing the work for you. You do great documents, you make their spaces look good, and then referrals naturally happen.
And I remember numerous times when we were eating breakfast in our local country breakfast site, And Doug would look up and go, "Oh, here comes the sheriff. Hi, sheriff. I'm playing golf with him next Friday afternoon." And then, another day it would be another county official or somebody else. But I was always amazed at how you had such close relationships with all these people. I mean, I wasn't amazed because I know you and you're a fun guy and all that stuff, but you really emphasized building those relationships in order to build business. That was your job, was to build the business.
Yeah. And, I think one of the things that I'm able to do, and I have done this naturally my entire career, I feel like I'm authentic when I talk to people. I don't do hard selling because I don't think hard selling works in a service industry. I want to understand a little bit about them, what makes them tick, what keeps them up at night, the things that they are looking forward to help the project be successful. So I really do make sure that I pay attention to that. And, recently I was coaching another employee who does a lot of business development for me. And I said, "You're really selling too much. I want you to stop selling. Just be who you are." And I think if you be who you are and you be authentic and you can show your skill set, you're going to be successful. I mean, sometimes just saying we can do this and we can do this and we can do this is not as successful as just saying, "Hey, I've gotten to know you, and I think I know what you need, and I think I know how I can help you."
And I love the way you phrase that. I know how I can help you. That's what everybody is looking for. And the whole concept of selling is an anathema to, many professionals who will say, "Oh no, I can't sell. I'll never sell. I'll never sell." And I remember my very first coach light years ago beating me over the head to say, "Pam, you're not selling. They have a need and you can take care of the need." And I can't tell you how many other clients I've had to beat that into their heads because I can't sell. In their case, it wasn't really necessary. So as you look forward to the next, I won't ask you I'm going to say 5 years. What are the steps that you look forward to taking, and what are the steps that you wish you could avoid?
So the steps that I'm looking forward to have started already with some of the folks that you're coaching for me right now. I mean, I have seen progress, and I don't know if they feel like they're making progress, but I can definitely see it.
That's what matters.
And you know what? Even when you were coaching me, it took a long time for Pam to beat Doug over the head and say, "Look, you really got to work through this. You got to work on this." And I think that I was resistant at first. Sometimes your ego gets in the way, or sometimes just the busyness of business and life gets in the way. But once you start to drink it in, it works great. So I'm really looking forward to that. The steps that I'm not looking forward to, really just surrounding, and I don't want to say I'm not looking forward to it. I've got to start working harder on it, is just making sure the quality of the product doesn't diminish as we grow. And that's the only thing that I'm worried about going forward, because we are really strong service-oriented client service type of industry. And we've really got to maintain that, because it only takes 1 or 2 bad projects and you really lose a lot of business. So that quality as I move forward is really important to me. And then as we do grow, I got to make sure that I got leaders behind my leaders, or resources behind my leaders. And that's something I am looking forward to, because you can find some really great people in our area of town, but it doesn't worry me. But the thing I do worry about is just the quality. So
yeah, because one bad project and poof.
Exactly, your has-been.
And not only that, word gets around. Whether somebody works in a big city or in a small town, as you and I know, having lived here for so long, you begin to know everybody, and you're just totally surprised to go, "Wait a minute, I know that person. Where did I meet that person?" And so word gets out if you don't do the job. So what are some of the pieces of advice you would give to someone in terms of developing processes and procedures, which I know are not favorites of yours, to get those pieces in place so you don't lose the quality on the work you're doing?
So I think the biggest thing is just to recognize what you're good at and don't try to do the things you're not good at. Really look for somebody who can fill those gaps and start to focus on what you're good at and let them be who they are. So I've got a senior architect with me, and he develops processes and QC and things like that, which is not my strength. And I totally tell him that all the time. And he knows where he should be, the seat on the bus, if you will, and has accepted that and is doing a great thing for us. So what I'm trying to do is just recognize what I'm really not being successful at and what I'm really shouldn't be doing, and putting it in my trust in some people who will do it for me.
So let's say you're talking to somebody who's 37 to 40 years old, and they want to move up in the company. What do they need? 3 steps for them as business developers. 1, 2, 3 that will help them move up in the company, set themselves apart from their competitors, their internal competitors.
Okay, I think there's 3 pretty easy things to do. Number 1 is stop selling. Don't think you're selling.
Okay.
So you don't have to tell everybody how great an architect is or how great a designer you are or anything like that, because a lot of people come into it thinking every architect is a great designer and every architect can do any building that they want to do. So I don't think you really need to focus on that. What you need to focus on is, what does that person or that organization need in order to succeed in whatever venture they're doing? And to do that, you got to dig in with these folks. So you don't just be talking about, you did this project and you did this project and you did this project, and really dive into what has worked in the past for you, what have you worried about, and how can we fix some things so it's a smooth process for you going forward. So you're not really selling. What you're trying to do is understand their business model. And once you understand that, I think you can move forward and help them.
Okay.
I think the second thing from a business development standpoint is public speaking. You got to get used to.
And I know that you've not had trouble with that, but what do you say? What can you recommend to the introvert who goes, oh, no, I don't want to be public speaking. I don't want to do that. What do you tell them? Where do they go to learn?
So there's obviously Toastmasters and things like that they can do. It's easy stuff like if you go to church and you're in Sunday school, speak out a little bit, and talk about whatever topic is going on. You just need to understand that you don't have to be perfect in what you're saying. What you have to do is just get it out of your body, though, and out of your mouth, so you can get used to expressing your ideas from a verbal standpoint. The other thing is I think you got to work on clarity. A lot of people like to talk, but they talk in circles, when you're doing business development. What you got to do is really learn how to listen and then respond with a lot of clarity. And I think that's a real skill. And I'm not sure how you do that, other than you really got to focus when people are talking and not focus on your response yet until you hear the whole thing.
Yep.
And then focus on a real clear response to whatever they said in order to make sure that, that you get that point across. So you might say something like, okay, so it's my understanding that X, Y, and Z is what's going on. And those little tricks, are very important to make sure that you get this communication working properly. Sometimes when a client answers, I ask a question and I answer it, sometimes I say, well, did that answer your question? And sometimes they say yes, and sometimes they say no. And if they say no, okay, to ask me again and let me make sure that I answer you properly. And it's okay not to be right all the time. You don't have to be right all the time. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. What you have to do is be the person who can create that level playing field between 2 minds who are trying to connect on a simple idea.
I love that metaphor, the level playing field, because I had this experience the other day. I never did find the level playing field. It was kind of painful. So the first point you made was to recap here before we go to number 3. So the first point was about don't sell, be yourself.
Right.
And the second one is about public speaking, right? Because I didn't write any of these down. So what's your third piece of advice for people who want to get good at business development?
Well, I think it is the listening. So honestly, the feedback that I've gotten from all the clients, and the reason we're winning a lot of work, is just we listen. And from a business development standpoint, you know what, it's as simple as that. So when the client tells you they want red brick, don't go back in with brown brick. If the client says they want a traditional building, don't design a modern building, you know? If you listen, I think you're going to be successful. That doesn't mean you have to compromise on creative ways to solve the problem, but you do have to listen to the things that they're asking for.
In your experience, what is one of the top 3 characteristics of a true leader? Because you've been a leader for a long time. It's just that now you own your own company.
I think one of the top characteristics is some self-confidence. I mean, not arrogance, but self-confidence. I think you really have to have some ability to feel like you know who you are, you know, and you're not afraid of who you are. So I think being a good leader, you have to have some self-confidence. I think the second thing is you got to understand, you got to continue to work on yourself. You got to read books,
Great.
whatever the books are. I read books all the time. You know, we're culture coding right now. We just read the fish book. I mean, and I read my books with my people because I want them to understand what the business is doing and what's trying to achieve. But you gotta enrich yourself. You can't just say I'm a leader just because I'm confident. You gotta say I'm a leader and I understand I've got to work on it because there's other skills that you gotta have to be a good leader. And you know, a lot of that is written on pages by very smart people. No reason to try to invent it yourself. And then I think the third thing is you got to have a passion for what you do.
Good
Whether
point.
it be, and that's not about making money, right? I think if you have a passion to be, you know, a great coach like you are, you're going to be taken care of. But that really kind of natural explosion within you that seeps into other people's lives and gets them excited about what you do you've got to have it as a leader. You know, you really got to have passion for it. So I think those 3 things are very important.
I'm in line with you on all of them because, you know, this is what I was put on earth to do. And I'm very fortunate because I have, like you, I have my own business, so I get to work with the people I choose to work with.
Right.
So that is a real benefit to being owning your own businesses. And Doug knows well that I only work with people who like to have fun and who are really smart and want to get better.
I think you have to ask yourself if you really want it, because there's nothing easy about being a CEO. I mean, you're getting bombarded with many topics. You have to have a variety of skill sets. You got to understand numbers. You got to understand people. You got to understand your profession. You got to understand financing. There's a lot of things that go into being a successful CEO. You don't have to be an expert at all that, but what you got to do is be able to synthesize all those things into a clear message to the people that you're trying to lead. And I think you really do have to ask yourself, do you really want it? Because there's a lot of, stress is not the right word, but there's a lot of skill sets that you have to get good at in order to succeed. And you got to recognize the faults in yourself and the gaps in yourself and say, okay, I know where I need help. And I think I can, understand all these pieces and parts I need to understand as a CEO. So it's a lot different from going to work 8 to 5, leaving at 5 and things like that. I mean, you got to think it's an onion. You got to peel it back and understand every layer and what needs to happen for you to be successful.
I would encourage people to take a look at Doug's operation and the people he's got working there, and they do some really interesting projects. And it's just it's giving you a little bit of a view of what it could be like to be in Doug's shoes. Thank you so much, my friend. I will talk to you later.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I'm proud to have been one of your students.